Hi, everyone. Heather here from the California AfterSchool Network for another Fireside Chat. And as usual, we are joined by Michael Funk from the California Department of Education, Expanded Learning Division. And this week, we are excited to be joined by Heather Pilgrim from Oak Valley. And so we'll jump into a conversation with Heather in just a minute. It might be a little confusing for Michael and all of you, which Heather we're talking about, but hopefully we'll keep it sorted. But in the meantime, Michael, you and I have been kind of out and about talking to different folks, having different conversations. We've actually gotten to go to conferences in person now and talk to people face to face, and realize that people have likes and they're more than just a box on our computer screen. So that's been great. But wanted to really start out this fireside chat as people have kind of now really been digging into ELO-P implementation, just highlighting some of the themes that have come up, some of the common questions, really starting to address some of those concerns. And then we'll jump into a conversation with Heather about what that actually looks like in Oak Valley. So a few things that come up for me. The first, everybody likes to call this program ELO-P. Michael, no matter how many times you said, please don't call it ELO-P. I heard that a few times. And so, you know, you won't be penalized or lose funding if you call it ELO-P.
But we might consider that.
You know, the next, I think, there is a phrase one of our friends uses, plandemic. There's so many different plans that are required right now for different funding, different components of funding. And so we get a lot of folks who are asking about the program plan. And hey, I thought the program plan was due June 30th, but I don't see a due date. And so really starting off this conversation with the program plan does not have a due date. We do recognize that, especially for our small school districts, our single school districts, you maybe don't necessarily have staff to manage 5 different plans. The program plan does not have a due date. And Michael, I know you'll jump into that a little bit more, so I'll just leave it there. My other, favorite thing that I hear about is like 30 days and 9 hours. There's just no way we can hit those numbers. And so a lot of the conversation we're having is around, start with what you have. Like, look at, you've got your instructional day, and then look at all the things you have outside of your instructional day. If you're offering a 2-week summer program already, start there. Maybe look at how you add some additional students. You don't have to be up to 30 inter-session days, 9 hours. By the end of this summer. We really are looking at how you start with what you have and how you build that and grow access for your students and families. And then the other thing is, a lot of just thinking within kind of the confines that most education programs tend to operate in. And so really trying to ask folks, like, who might you partner with? Maybe you already have informal partnerships with them that you can grow, or maybe it's an opportunity to grow new partnerships. I think we're really used to thinking everything has to happen on campus in one particular way. And you can really start to look at how you keep your library open extra hours, how you bring in your local parks and rec. We know workforce is a challenge. And so maybe ask some of your instructors, hey, what's your favorite thing you do in your off time? Would you be willing to spend an hour a couple times a week off, teaching students that? Do you like to paint? Do you like to garden? Do you like to cook? Are you willing to get paid to spend an extra hour with students during the week to do that? Again, starting small. And so just trying to kind of think about what's more within reach and not think that you have to have this full program up and running by the end of the summer. So those are some of the conversations we've started to have. Michael, what else? I know there's a lot of things.
I'll share 2 things. Then I want to jump into the conversation with Heather and Green. Heather, the number of times I've told people in one of our sessions, you got to see this fireside chat, but we haven't recorded it yet because your story is very powerful. But before I jump to my first question for you, a team of us were with also the system of support team visiting a school district, working with them to develop their expanded learning opportunity plan. And they've done some, going to bring them on here to share as well, because they've done some phenomenal work in documenting, researching, surveying parents, surveying students, surveying principals, really, and they're ready to start their first 2 weeks this spring to just kind of pilot these ideas in their head. And I so applaud that. There was a bit of fear, and then they just started the conversation, started talking, and then things emerged. And but one of the things they were talking about is the challenge with staffing. Like, I think everyone has the concern about, I know everyone has the concern about staffing. And one thing that was apparent was they were talking about staffing the whole program with instructional aides. And as we were talking through different challenges and different opportunities, I shared the story of the Summer Matters campaign, where there was an intentionality about diversifying the type of staff, that they specifically sought after certificated teachers who were willing to give some time in the summer, matching them with typical community educators. When we use that term, we mean after-school workers, and typically those workers are from the community, look more like the kids, are really good at designing experiences that kids just love, like to play and to adventure, and yet they didn't really have the skill set to help a student who was really struggling with math, for example, understand what kind of techniques they could use to unblock whatever was blocking the understanding. And so interesting. So you have these certificated teachers who could really help unlock the academics in a setting where the community educators were providing so much fun. And you had an experience where kids learned, improved, and never wanted to miss a day. They never wanted to miss a day. That combination. And I talk, it's kind of like an ecosystem. If you don't have diversity in the ecosystem, all types of things go wrong. And so this thinking of your staffing in a diverse, that was kind of unlocked just the creativity. Another conversation at our office hours. By the way, we do have office hours every Friday from noon to 1:30. You can drop in, register. Heather will have that coming out with the chat. But a person was talking about, I don't think I'm going to be able to hire enough staff to be in ratio. Or what happens if I don't have enough staff on a certain day, or more kids come on one day than I'm anticipating and I'm out of ratio. And I shared, respectfully, I said, because they have an ACES program. If you have an ACES program and kids show up and all of a sudden you've got 2 staff that didn't show up, what do you do? Well, we're out of ratio. Precisely. You are. And what happens in the school day when the substitute doesn't show up? It's supposed to cover for the teacher who had a doctor's appointment. Oh, we move the kids to another class. So you're out of ratio. Oh, so we don't have to send, no, you don't have to send the kids home. You're out of ratio. And it's going to happen. So it's interesting how we can imagine a lot of the fear and concern that people are expressing is actually scenarios that they imagine. And they imagine to be the worst case and unsurmountable, when in fact, we face these situations all the time in life. And you just face the day and walk through it. Heather, Heather Pilgrim, one of the things that inspired, we heard about you And so we reached out to you and set up a conversation. And it was, maybe 30 seconds into that conversation, I said to myself, we got to have this leader on a fireside chat, because I think your story is very powerful. But before we start, tell us about, Oak Valley Unified Elementary School District. Where are you at? What kind of setting you're at? Just give us a little bit of the lay of the land.
Sure. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind words. Probably a little pat on the back that I needed this time of year. So thank you. I appreciate that. Oak Valley is right outside of Tulare, west of Tulare, the city of Tulare, in Tulare County. Probably about, I would say, 7 to 10 miles from the center of town. And we are a single school district, K-8, and we have about 575 students. Interesting fact, 65% of our enrollment is inter-district. So they choose to come out here. They choose to drive out here. It's a very tight-knit community and family-oriented. I would say probably, I don't know, maybe 20 years living like, that's going to sound bad. I feel like we have a lot of innocence out here. And that is something that drew me to the school, because old-fashioned values and high standards and of behavior and academics and so forth, which everybody strives for, but it's very unique to me in all the school districts that I've worked in. So we are a small little agricultural community, and I'm not going to call it the ELO-P. The ELO plan is a plan that, caused me a little distress at first.
Yeah, so tell us more about that. What type of things were distressing to you? I think there's a lot of people out there, maybe not a lot of people that watch the chat, because a lot of people who watch the chat kind of get inspired and get some ideas, but there's a lot of people out there who are very clear that this is causing them a lot of anxiety and stress.
I think probably earlier in the year, when we were told about this plan, it was amongst quite a few others. And at the time, just trying to separate them all out, because like you said, I'm the superintendent. I have no assistants. It's just me. I'm lucky enough to have a principal, but really in the end, I'm writing all of these plans. I don't have necessarily a huge team to pull from. I do my normal educator input, stakeholder input, but for the most part, it's me. So trying to organize it all, I think my biggest fear at the time was knowing that this was not going away. And the 30 days and the 9 hours really scared me, because it really felt like a huge paradigm shift to our system. And I was thinking at the time that I was responsible for those 30 days. I was responsible for those 9 hours. Once I dug into actually reading the plan and learning of the details and having conversations with others, I realized that the burden wasn't all on me, and it wasn't expected to. And when I started to change change the lens of how I was looking at this plan to a community effort, I felt the burden slowly come off my shoulders. And then I met with my pro-youth director, Marie Pinto, and who was wonderful. And we collaborated and talked through it, because she was nervous as well, because I think she saw her side of this and commitment as well. So I think once I started knowing that I had other people to help me through these 9 hours, and plus we were already doing it. She was already here. The program was already here. We just needed to add to it. At first, I thought it was going to be a competition. I thought, well, if I'm providing this and you're providing your program, they're going to want to come to mine, or how are we going to get enough kids to come to both? Is one going to collapse? And that was a fear as well. So I think there was a lot of stressful times in the beginning, almost a depression, I think, as a superintendent. Coming off of the 2021 school year and thinking that we got through it, or that I had gotten through it without any more plans. It was hard. It was really hard. So I had to take some time where I was really kind of mad and frustrated and sad over it all, because these changes were definite. I mean, this is a change. So I think that's when I kind of put on my big girl pants and said, all right, the pity party's over. It's time. I've got to move on. You know, I've got to make the best out of this situation, because this is only my 3rd year at Oak Valley. So when I came, my first year, halfway through the pandemic came, I haven't had one full normal average year here at Oak Valley. This is it. So I knew I had to take it and run with it and make the best out of it.
Those emotions that you're sharing, and thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. Oftentimes outsiders observe leaders. You know, we know how to put on our leadership face, right? We know how to look like we've got it all together. As much as I'm the evangelist to help people to try to think about what's possible and to get started and let the flywheel, the inertia start to take effect. Trust me, when I learned we were going to be implementing this program, I had all those emotions that you had, and then some, sitting in my office at CDE or here at home. How in the heck are we going to help all these districts do this? And I took the advice I gave others, and Heather, you know, we were doing this, and we just, okay, do something each day to move it forward. Have one more conversation with one more district. One of the things that you shared with us that I think was an insight that helped as you started to move forward, and not be paralyzed by the change or the unknown, was this understanding that you could do this in modulars and kind of piece things together with blocks. I mean, there's a lot of people who are thinking, I got to hire staff, they've got to do the whole 9 hours of the 30 days, and then they're going to be overtime. And give us some concrete examples of what you're starting to build.
Sure. I was a home ec teacher for 15 years, and the whole reason why I went into administration was because I wanted to build programs for students. I saw that within my teaching, I got to create new classes in culinary and in fashion, and it was just so fun to see these kids who would normally be very difficult students thrive in my classes. And I thought that if I can do that within my classroom, then I can now, as an administrator, I'd be able to have some say into providing it, you know, school-wide or district-wide. So I find I'm very honored that I get to do that. And so that's where I kind of went with this program or with this plan. I saw the potential of building the programs that we currently have and expand on them, especially when I would have my elective teachers, because we have a good, even though we're small, we're mighty. We have my board is very interested in making sure that we have lots of opportunities for our students, a well-rounded education. So when I saw or when I heard from my teachers during the normal academic year, frustrated about the scheduling because now we had to have more intervention time, which they were not getting as much, elective time. And ELD impacts this time as well, and which it shouldn't, because it becomes an equity issue. So we have all these conversations around these programs. And so I started to think, well, wait a minute, why can't we, if this truly is an extension of the day, why couldn't we have those students that possibly might miss out on some electives during the day, not because they might just have a conflict in their schedule, but because they're younger and we can't offer ag down into the first grade, second grade, because there's one ag teacher and we don't have enough time to include everybody. And so when I started looking at it like that, I went to each one of these teachers, and a perfect example would be, I have a very passionate band teacher, and he's always wanted to do jazz band during the day. So why couldn't we maybe do that after school? If you want to build your skill set in a certain area of the band, be it wind or percussion or whatever it might be, could we offer that after school? And then when they get to sixth grade or they get to seventh grade, and then they're more prepared to be in marching band, things of that nature. I also have a drama teacher who is, a theater. She's created cheerleading. She does all kinds of things, and she's so passionate. But not everybody can participate because maybe they want to do yearbook and they want. So went to them, said, "Hey, can we offer something after school? Would you be willing to come after school?" And then it was like, "All right, maybe 1 day a week, maybe 2 days a week. I don't know if I could do this 5 days a week." And I said, "I'll take anything, whatever," because what I'm thinking is they'll get in there one day, they're going to want to, because there's no requirement, right, to stay until 6 o'clock, and we have to offer it. But if kids are going to get picked up from this program and only last maybe an hour or hour and a half, maybe that's enough. I don't know. But I think once they get into the groove of seeing the fun and the potential of this after school, I think it will expand on its own. And so that's kind of the approach I took when it comes to building those programs. And working with Marie and the after school program, we kind of talked about what that would look like. Maybe going to her program first and doing the taking roll, getting the snack, and maybe there's some type of dispersing out to a certain room for that day if they signed up for jazz band, or if they signed up for ag to do 4-H, because we're going to bring 4-H into the school day. We're going to use that as our curriculum for our ag pathway. So now 4-H goes down to, I think it's 6 years old, first grade. So now we can have that offered, those projects offered for them, and pulling parents to be leaders, because that's what 4-H is all about, having those community helpers. So there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, and Heather, I would encourage you, as you work with Marie, who we know well, to not think of it as going to her program and then leaving her program, but just, this is our program.
Yeah.
Because you can have both kids on the same day, it's no problem. People still have a hard time believing that because we have told everybody the opposite their whole careers. But yes, one program, you can count the same kid on the same day for both. Really two funding streams for one program. I just want to amplify something, that was in a conversation. Heather and I were in a room, and Julie Bosch was there, who's has been on the Fireside chat as well. We were having a conversation with some districts. I can't remember if this was to the group or to someone on the side who was just really struggling with, it seemed impossible to this person. And I said, does it seem possible that you could maybe before the end of the year do something for 2 weeks for 20 kids? Like that's one staff person. I mean, does that seem like, because I'm a firm believer in what you just said. Once you get started, you begin to see the possibilities. And isn't it that way with life? Any kind of project, you want to write something, you want to start a new project. Oftentimes I get stuck in my own stuckness until I actually take the first step, and then I find a path. Heather, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I think all the things you said, Michael, and Heather, appreciate a lot of the things that you called out, right? And we've seen this elsewhere, this like, oh, programs are going to be competing, and then you have this conversation and that evolved to like, oh no, we're working together. And so most schools have many more assets than they realize. And so as you start to kind of like unpack all of the partners you already have, and even just asking, I think a lot, right? Like you said, you went and asked, and you thought about all the things that your teachers had said. Oh, I always want to do this. Oh, I wish I could have done this. And I hear a lot of folks who are like, we can't possibly ask our staff to work anymore. And we truly understand staff are overworked and there's all sorts of issues there, but have you asked? A lot of them would be willing and excited, especially if it's a passion project for them, something that they can spend an hour, right? And the commitments, I think not only is the programming modular, and Julie Bush also talks about this, but the commitment can also be modular, right? Like if you are running a 4-week program, can you ask staff to commit to a week or 2 weeks and like kind of build it out with different staff? I think it feels overwhelming when, as we were saying, like, okay, I need the same staff to run all of this, and how can I possibly find and hire those folks? But once you start breaking it into pieces and bringing in those community partners and parents and other folks, it just becomes so much more manageable. And we do hope that people start with what you have and slowly start to build on and add those pieces, because the most important part of this program is that it's intentional and it's meeting the needs of students and families. And so if you build a whole massive thing and no students attend, it's probably not meeting the needs of students and families. And so actually starting with that as well, like what are your students and families' most pressing needs and interests, and how are you connecting those dots as well?
Well, and you mentioned something that sparked a thought. We're rural. Like I said, we're probably about 7 to 10 miles from the town. And my concern is that will they stay after school? Because I'm going to probably need to create bus transportation, a late bus. But I can't, we go door to door. I mean, we drop off door to door. I won't be able to necessarily do that with a late bus, because I might have, remember the 65% inner district. We have one bus stop for those inner district students. That's about 2 miles away from the school. And the only reason why we do that is because we're very congested. If everybody drove out here, the way we're right off a little highway. So it worries me that I really feel like the after school program currently meets our needs. We don't have a waiting list per se. So if we were to add to it, would they come? And that is my fear. But again, just like getting the teachers to be committed and involved through the joy of doing it, I'm hoping they'll see that this is a different experience and they'll want to stay out here. So
Well,
that,
yeah, of course, don't forget attendance is based on the needs of the student and family. And so if you add to what the children already coming to the after school program get to experience, you have been successful.
okay.
You know, that's, and of course, we can talk off the Zoom, but I mean, I think that's doing more for the kids you have is also success
Okay.
in this program.
That makes that. I like the way that you put that.
Yeah. So, and the other, so someone asked me in the office hours, you know, I don't think I'm going to be able to meet 50% unduplicated, even enrolled, even, you know, provide access. We're interpreting that as being enrolled. And I said, remember, 50% is for the year, not any one time. So if you have a certain number of students, and maybe in the summer you attract different group of students, and collectively that comes up to 50%. That when the audit starts, that's what the audit actually looks for.
So 50% of them that attended at least once or participated for, what do you mean? Can you clarify that?
Yes, it's good we're doing this because they can come one day. There's no attendance requirement.
Right. Okay.
So it's offer and provide access. And we're suggesting for the audit guide that to demonstrate that you've provided access is that the parent or guardian has filled out a registration form for the program. And you've done it. If 50% of your unduplicated students are registered for the program, you have met the requirement. How much they attend, the auditors are not going to take a look at. Heather's probably about time, just because we could go on and there's a bunch of other stuff, but you always ask that great question at the end. Go ahead and go for it, and then I'll close this up.
Great. Yeah, Heather, I think I appreciate you sharing, and as Michael said earlier, being vulnerable, and even now still like, oh, you know, this conversation has provided more insights. And so conversations are important. There's always something we can learn from one another. And I would ask you, you know, what might you share to your past self or other superintendents that might be in the position that your past self was, of that feeling of overwhelmed, maybe a little helpless, like this is just too much. I don't know what to do. I don't even know how to take the first step. So what advice would you give to those folks to maybe help them, not to solve all the problems, but to just even take that first step?
I think naturally as superintendents, we're kind of typically control freaks a little bit, or we like to be in control. So in the beginning, it was the expecting for myself that I was supposed to know all the answers. And if we don't know them right away, there's something wrong. Because typically in a typical year, any issue, and we pretty much have had experience and we go off of that. I think my advice would be that I think that I had to stop doing that. I had to ask questions and collaborate because I'm so used to doing things by myself that I felt, again, vulnerable. If I asked, I didn't know the answer. when oftentimes you are looked at as a superintendent to know all of the answers. So you try and know them. But in this case, and in the last 2 years with all of these plans, I think my advice would be it's okay to reach out and ask for clarifications and assistance and core group. I have a core group of about 5 superintendent women that we get together probably once a month, and we are constantly on a texting conversation, and we ask each other. It's a safe zone, and we ask those questions. And if one doesn't know, the other knows, or if none of us know, then we're all seeking it, and we come back and we answer it for the group. I would say find those people and ask questions, and don't fear to collaborate and reach out.
Thanks, Heather. Yeah, that peer support group is definitely very essential for all of us. Well, thank you. And Michael, I will turn it over to you for the last word. And you don't forget to come off mute before you start showing.
Yeah, I was hearing the dog maybe about ready to go. So Heather, thanks for being our guest today and for sharing so honestly where you're at, where you're going. And I think that the fact that you had a question that we could address in the moment is a perfect example of what happens when you do this in relationship, like you are with the other superintendents that you text and go back and forth. We've said this to educational leaders. We're here to walk with you through this. This is not us giving yes or no answers. This is not us dispensing wisdom. Now, good luck. We will walk with you through this. This is a long game. That's why we didn't put a due date on the plan. This is a long game. And the fact that the legislature is proposed and the administration are proposing for the audit of this program not to commence until 23-24 gives us more time to walk through this together. Now, what I implore you not to do is say, oh, well, the audit's not until 23-24. I don't have to start until 23-24. I think our students and families deserve better than that. I don't think, I know. And I don't want to say that in a way that implies that an educational leader is doing that so they have less work to do. I realize there's a million pressing things that are calling for you each day. I guess what I would like to encourage everyone to do is, if you're feeling stuck, do something small every day. Do something small every day. And you know what? If that might be, I'm going to write a list of 3 things I think our students need. I'm going to do that on Monday. I'll write a list of 3 things. Putting something on paper starts to activate the brain, starts to get you thinking. It's started a little bit of momentum. Heather, you said, you know, I asked someone if they were interested. Well, that's something you can do on Tuesday. And then just do something small every day. And all this we do with love. It's what I will continue to say. It's obvious to me, Heather, that you have a passion for your students and you love your students in your community. And leading with love as you are means whatever it takes, you're gonna do what's best for them. So thank you for leading with love, and we'll all follow your example.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate you and the CDE too being so flexible and compassionate as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Heather.
All right. Thanks,
Thanks,
Heather.
everyone.
Thanks, Michael. Until next time.